this is kind of off the story, but I like to tell stories. The friend of mine lives in San Francisco, and she knows the Galiotos, and they're mob connected. And they have a famous restaurant there. So one of them passed away, and she went to the funeral home, and when she walked in the door, nobody would say anything. They just stood there, dumbfounded. She said, you could hear a pin drop. She said one of the sons come and put his arm around her, and she said, it was just like the whole ice was broken. Everybody started talking. But just that, it's known that that restaurant is mob connected. I mean,
They weren't sure who she was until.
well, she knew the sons. And she had grown up with one of the sons.
Well,
And when he put his arm around her,
it was all right
ice,
then.
they just all started talking then. But you look on the Ellis, once again I'll say Ellis Island, it's not totally everybody, because everybody didn't come through Ellis Island. You can also go, I had the experience of doing some research at the National Archives, and they've got a lot of information on immigration there. It's on microfilm, and you can look up to see where your ancestor came from and what everything, and you know. And I worked on it. I found Jerry's. I didn't have to go to the National Archives for her, but I did find her grandfather was born in what was then the Austro-Hungarian Empire.
This was online that you found?
I found this online. I even found the name of the ship that it came over on. Yeah, and he was, what was the name of that town, do you remember? But anyway, it was,
on the paper.
it's part of Poland now. At that time, it was in the Austro. This was 1914, right before World War I began. And that's when he came here. And I found the ship that he was on and the town that he lived in Poland and everything. Made copies of it. She passed them all along to all her relatives. So, let's see now, what else was I going to tell you about? Oh, other immigration sites, Baltimore, Philadelphia. Those were the other two big places that people came in through.
So would you look up baltimore.org or?
What I would do is I'd go on and just go in and type in immigration records online, you know, and see what they've got there for you, because I don't know exactly. I mean, I know a lot of stuff and I've done a lot of stuff, but then again, I know these sites, but sometimes I haven't looked at them.
What was the other town besides Baltimore, as you said?
Philadelphia. A lot of them came in through Philadelphia, Baltimore. I think a lot of the Irish
A
people.
lot of the
and I
Irish
think-
came in through Baltimore.
Yeah, and I believe New Orleans
Yeah.
too. There were a lot of people came in through New
Well,
Orleans.
they would have brought them.
Yeah.
And especially during the Irish potato famine in the 1840s, a lot of them came in through to New Orleans.
Well, Fred's grandfather, there was an outbreak of influenza or something in New York area during the early immigration, so he came to Brazil and then came in through Texas.
Yeah.
We have a lot of
during
immigration through
during the
Canada
California
also.
Gold Rush, a lot of people came across through the Isthmus of Panama and went that way to go to California, because that was a shorter, even though it was rough going through the Isthmus because there was so many bugs and diseases and all that you could catch, you know. But a lot of them went that way because it was a shorter, as we know, they built the Panama Canal, and they didn't have a Panama Canal then, but they made trails and stuff through the Isthmus so people could go through that way and come around on that end to California. Now, when you go to the courthouses, of course, but funeral homes, you can get a lot of information out of funeral homes. A lot of funeral homes keep records for quite a few years, so you can get information from that. Local genealogy societies. A lot of places might have a state genealogical society, or they might have a county genealogical society, or they might have both. I happen to know that, what was that movie? Shelby County, Indiana has both. They have a county society and a state society too. But check not only genealogy societies, but check with historical societies as well, because they're going to have some information too. Not yours, okay?
I've seen them over there.
But yeah, a lot of them do. here's another one of my stories, and I'll never live this one down. Well, Jerry and I went to Shelby County, Indiana, and they sent us down to a room where all this information and all this stuff was. Big, huge steel door. Went in there, it was like this room here, piled with papers. And I mean books, papers, all this stuff piled over here. And I was looking for a specific wheel. And I told Jerry, I said, oh, we'll be here all day, we'll never find this wheel. She walks over to a table like this, says, oh, is this what you're looking for? I said, yeah. She's never let me live that down. She said, you've been doing genealogy for years and years, and you couldn't find that wheel, and I found it.
Guardian angel on my shoulder.
There you go.
But it had a lot of good information on that, in that wheel. Wheels do have, that's another thing you need to check. Wheels have a lot of good information on them, especially who, they leave this to this person and this to this person, and you'll get a lot of good information out of the wheel. And you can, and deeds, I say look at the deed books, and although you may not find a specific property that you're looking for or where it is, like I said before, but you might run across some information that you're looking for. It's just a hit or miss. Sometimes genealogy is like that. It's hit or miss, you know. You go somewhere and you look for something and you're not going to find it. It's a brick, what they call the brick wall.
You know, if you get any information from the funeral home and you find out what church they're from, you might, and if it's a family church, you might be able to find a lot of information there.
That's a good thought, Jerry. Yeah, that's true. The churches do keep a lot of records on
Episcopal
that.
churches
Especially the
and
Catholic
African
Church, they
churches.
keep
Yeah.
extensive records. But that's a good thought, that you brought that up. But that is a good idea. Churches do keep a lot of baptismal records, death records, members of the church, maybe how long they were members or what, where they are interred, where a specific church. And I've noticed, especially in Virginia, not so much in West Virginia, but a lot of churches have, especially in Virginia, the churches have cemeteries adjacent to them. Now, that's not big in this state. There are churches that do have that. But in Virginia, it's really common. I've seen it quite a bit in the state of Virginia. And I think Massachusetts and Pennsylvania and places like that, that was the idea. They buried them in the churchyard right nearby the church. So, wander through the churchyard. I mean, like I said.
It's a European tradition, and it's a European tradition
Yeah.
to do that.
It isn't-
And
I
a lot of
didn't know.
people, I think the people that came here for religious reasons brought that with them.
And that's why you find it so much through those 13 original colonies. It's
Right.
prevalent.
That's how they do
My great grandfather is supposedly buried at a cemetery out in Harlem Heights on the right side of the road.
I know where that cemetery is.
But my father and one of his cousins years ago went out there and looked and looked and looked. They couldn't find anything. Where would you suppose a record for that would be, or would there be?
Do you know what church it was, or what funeral home or church it was
No.
buried out
Maybe in the
in?
courthouse to see the death certificate.
Go to the courthouse and see if you can find
They
it.
probably did that years
Yeah.
ago.
Just what he's saying, I had a sister that I knew was born December 5th, 1941, or 7th, December 7th, 1941. I could not, and I know, I have a picture of her in her casket. My mother wept over that child for years because she died. And I couldn't find anything. I couldn't find a birth record, a death record in Fayette County. Couldn't find anything in Raleigh County. They said they took her to the hospital. Hospital has no records. Finally decided Wallace and Wallace. Looked at the picture again, and right on the picture it said Wallace and Wallace. For the 99th time. But they told me she was stillborn and where she was buried. But they can't tell me, I still don't have a grave. Behind the grave in Leyland,
Well, I have
that church.
a family cemetery at Prosperity. And my grandmother, it's behind the Red Brick Baptist Church out in Prosperity. My grandmother had 3 or 4 children that were born and then deceased, as infants. And they supposedly are buried in this one area that nobody plants anybody there because we know that there's 3 or 4 babies buried there.
But
And,
see, I was sure when I found Wallace and Wallace, they would have something. But it was just behind Chestnut Knob, is that what it is?
Yeah, I know where that is.
Behind the church. Well, that encompasses a large territory.
Mm-hmm. It does. And that is a
cemetery you're
problem.
talking about
Sure.
over at Harlem Heights.
yes,
I helped build that, state road garage over there.
mhm.
And on top of that state road garage, you could see that cemetery.
Is that right?
And it was straight in front of that house beside that state road garage. And
Oh.
there used to be a beer
Did you?
joint.
Oh,
What
good.
happened, what they told me, there used to be a beer joint there instead of that house.
Uh-huh.
And there was a lot of killings in that beer joint, and they just take them across the road and bury them.
Oh, my God.
The beer joint was on East Main Street?
That sounds like Wild West.
Yeah.
But the
There's
cemetery
always
was
no
the
nothing, I just take them over.
One of them was a Gilkison boy, and that's the reason I know it.
The cemetery that I'm thinking about is further out there on the right. I don't know that that would be the same one.
Does it have an N in it, Kith, N,
Yes,
Kin?
Kith and kin.
That's what I wondered when you said it, I never heard Kith.
In.
Go scroll down. See, this is a website to create virtual bulletin boards. The one
I don't really
thing,
know
you
from
can
that
put your
area.
email, yeah, email and your password. Once you can go in here and then come on down so they can see what you can put on there. See, she's put one for my house and another called genealogy goodies, and yet another called my family history. So if you go on down, you'll see pictures. Yeah. Okay, then you can put all this stuff on here, pictures of your family, and it'll tell you step by step exactly how to do it. And when you click on the picture of your ancestor, you're supposed to get information about that specific ancestor. It's like a bulletin board for genealogy. And I'm just kind of hit on it, and I haven't really looked at it really close, but you can see how she's got it laid out here. That's Harriet Ritchie, that's her ancestor. And then you go on down here, memories, I guess. And then you access pictures, you click on that. And if you've got other pictures in your family that you want to put on that site, it'll all come up for you. So in effect, it's a genealogical bulletin board for your own personal use, or I guess you can share it and so other people can see it online. So I thought that was a pretty neat idea. And it even, like I said, it tells you step by step exactly what to do with it.
You'd have to have a scanner or something to put that on there, right?
You sure can, sure can.
Well, I gotta go, I'll see you.
Okay, we'll see you, Robert.
Bye-bye, Bob.
And I just, to me, it's an amazing thing. I started out in it and I wasn't finding much, and then I found a whole lot of stuff. But my dad's side of the family, you might as well look at that wall right there, because I can't find it. The only thing I know is that his grandmother raised him. She came from Scotland here, and that's it. And he
She
had a
lied
brother.
about, all right.
And she lied about it.
But tell me what she lied about.
And they lived down Scarborough.
What about the Hiltons in this area? There's several
They're,
families
as far as
in.
I can know, determine, they're not related.
Oh.
As far as what I found out, that John Helton, who was my grandfather, came from Smith County, Tennessee, Carthage, Tennessee. That's where he came from. And that's all I can find. I can't find anything else about it. And I know that my grandmother's name was Pearl, and she was a McAllister. And that's it. I'm at a dead end. And I know where my great-grandmother's buried in some of them, but as far as the Tennessee people and all that, can't find it. It's like they never existed.
I have a heart, that's one of my brick walls is a grandfather who was from Tennessee. Anything that's not of his own hand, like say starting with his World War I in Army enlistment, that he wrote all that information himself. He gave that to the government.
That is a good thing. If
But I don't
learned here
know, he could
recently-
have been a horse thief from Georgia. I don't know.
I've learned recently through Jerry telling me That's just what I should do. If you've got photographs and you know who the people are on those pictures, write them on the back. Or make you a list, a separate list and keep the pictures and the list together of who these people are. Because if somebody goes to look at those pictures after you're gone, they're not gonna know a thing about who these people are.
I did that with my grandmother because her family, she was only 12 in the pictures. And there was mother and dad, and there's another picture, mother, dad, and children, another picture, and these are the, remember how they used to mount them on cardboard?
Oh, yeah.
There was another picture of mom, dad, the kids, and their spouses. Then there was another picture of mom, dad, the kids' spouses, and all the grandchildren. And before grandmother died, I had her do that. I drew little circles on the back, because she was only 12 at the time.
Yeah, it's a good idea. It's a very good
And,
idea.
I mean,
Because I've got
nobody,
pictures-
I don't even know all of them.
I've got pictures that I don't even know who they are. You know,
And they're valueless if you don't know who they
And
are.
that's it. You don't know. Yeah, Tom.
Darrell, just think how complicated it's gonna be here in the next 20 or 30 years, because everybody has their pictures electronically on their phones and
Yeah.
flashcards, and, nobody runs a copy of it.
Already knows about
And
it.
marriage.
It's historyonview.org. WV History on View, excuse me. WV historyonview.org. And what it is through West Virginia University. It's their regional history collection of photographs. They're listed alphabetically on their site. And you can just go through and there it is. There you go. West Virginia, photographs from West Virginia and regional history collection. So that's something that you might be interested in looking at. I found this picture on here, nobody seems to know where it is. It says it's the cliffs in Greenbrier County. I asked Robert because he has family, his family comes from
I
there.
wanna see it.
Well, isn't that what you were just saying?
No.
It was Fort
Fort Spring.
Spring?
Now, this is another place.
Somebody's sure.
The name of the cliffs was the name of a man's house.
Oh.
This is an actual place. And I asked Robert about it, he said, I don't know where that is. But this is cool. You can look up all kinds of stuff on here. See, kitchen and dining hall with a lumber camp.
Is there a place, if you have a genealogy or a historical question, that you can post it and maybe get a response from somebody? Is there
That's what you
some-
need to do is go on and try to find some societies. See, I can't tell you right off the top of my head because there's so many. There's thousands.
Oh, I see.
There's thousands of genealogy.
The best thing to do is type in the
Organizations.
county,
Has to be on the river.
like
You know,
Raleigh County, West
It's on the
Virginia,
river, then it's
and
And
then
there
type
are
in
all
genealogy
kinds of
from it, and you'll have them pop up.
historic
They
preservation.
would have to go
The Cultural Center has loads of pictures.
I know, that's where a lot of these, I think, came from some of those. I don't know where they came from.
And then if there were lots of divorces and remarriages in your family, you've got a real problem, I
You
guess.
sure do. And another big problem is women.
Toughen up.
It's what?
I beg your pardon.
Because they get married. They get married and they lose their name. And that's hard to,
They lose more than their name. We'll talk later.
That's one of my pet peeves. One of my pet peeves when I'm searching for a woman. People change women's names. I don't do that. Marriage is known. If I have,
Yeah, well, what I'm talking about specifically is, let's say for instance, I was looking for my mother and I didn't know that her maiden name was Coleman. All I knew was Helton. See, that's hard. And that's one of the stumbling blocks. Unless you know specifically what the woman's maiden name was and when they got married and all that,
I put
It's-
maiden name unknown.
it's a hard thing to do, Now, sometimes you'll get lucky, you know the family, you know who they married and all that. But if you're just searching for somebody and they've gotten married, you may never find them.
Well, and I hate it because they sometimes go by Mrs. Henry
Right.
last name.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
well, what was your name?
Who are you?
My mother
Yeah.
was bad to do that back in the 50s and 60s.
Yeah,
That
I
was
was
common
gonna say,
for that
yeah,
era.
yes, yeah.
Yeah, well,
Now I think
I don't
women
remember the
use
lady's
their
name, but
first
there was a
name.
patron here in the library who checked out books, and that's the way Mrs. so-and-so.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember the lady's name,
She
but I
just
do
totally
remember
lost her
Yeah.
checking out books under that specifically like that.
Well,
You
from the
see that,
very
Fred?
beginning,
Oh.
maybe what they should have done is,
Hotel hall, yeah.
the woman should have kept her, family name and then put his name afterwards, so that if you went to look for her, you could have found her.
That would have been the wisest thing to do.
Would have been
My
the fancy
daughter-in-law's
name.
done that just because of her business.
Well, I know a couple of people that's done that. A couple
When I
of-
first got married, that's how I signed everything. That was my official signature, was my
Mhm.
name, my maiden name, and my,
Well,
but mainly because I was used to writing my maiden name, that it was coming
But
out.
it does
anyway.
create a problem when you're doing genealogy. Yeah,
Darrell, that we were talking about the women, how they use their names. Back when I was in college, my landlady was in her sixties, so she'd be well over 100 now if she were living. She had these very strict rules of etiquette that she followed. If you were Mrs. John Jones, you were married to John Jones. If you were Mrs. Hilda Jones, you were his widow. And if you were Hilda Jones, you were divorced or single. And buddy, she went down the line and she said, this is incorrect. So I can imagine, back in the 40s when she was, for being
See,
a
my
prime
mom
worker in
had
common.
forgot that.
my mom's,
Did you learn that?
Yes.
Well, that's what she told me.
my mom's name was Anna Dietrich Helton. And when she went to work at the post office, they made her use her middle initial, Beatrice C. That's how they had it. Remember, Jerry? She had all of her pens that she wore when she worked at the post office. That's the government told her she had to.
Well, I hate because you have to go by your first name. When they go looking for me, I mean,
Well, mother never used her first name anyway.
but, yeah.
my mother, if there was some correspondence or anything to go to a couple, a married couple, she would always insist that you put the wife's name first and then John Jones, keep his name together, but it was okay for, the wife's first name to be out here just with
Are there any questions?
What was that picture that was just there before?
It's Newlands Millinery, Beckley, West Virginia.
Yeah.
Interior Newlands Millinery,
I don't remember that.
119 Main Street.
I have one question. It has to, with our state, what we commonly, when we do research, is like, for instance, I'm doing research in Logan County, but it's Logan County, Virginia.
Right.
What is the general rule they do with those records? Is it up to that county, the state?
Well, there's been some controversy over that in the past years. One of the things that I was told, that some of the records went to Richmond, that are in Richmond, because it was before we were in the state. And there are some records in Richmond from what's now West Virginia. I can't tell you what's there. My suggestion is to go to the Library of Virginia's website and look, and you'll see what's there. Because they don't have it all. They have just some things. Then I was told that anything before we became a state was all in Richmond. Well, that's not true. It's not. No. Some of it, a lot of it's in the different counties, but there is some material. I don't know whether this material is duplicate or it's original material that's been there or not. But when I went down there to the Library of Virginia one time, Robert, and I think who else was
Jim Legg.
Jim Legg, I think. Robert and Jim Legg and I went. And it seemed to me like I did see some West Virginia or Virginia, quote unquote, items there before we became a state. Now, I happen to know, and this is an interesting story. I don't know who thought about it, but he was smart. Whoever realized that there might be some fighting in Spotsylvania for County, Virginia was a genius, because they buried all the records. They buried all the records, and everybody knows that there was a huge battle fought in Spotsylvania in that area during the Civil War. Had those records still been in the courthouse at the time, they would have been destroyed. But whoever this person was decided, I'm going to bury these records so they won't be destroyed. So their records are complete back to the 17 whatevers,
Are they still buried, or?
No, no, no,
They
no.
dug them back up.
Saying it's
Dug
no
them back
better
up.
than being destroyed if they're
No,
buried.
no, they dug them back up after the war was over.
They give you a shovel and let you go find your ancestors' information.
They realized that
Names
they
are over there.
Yeah.
They'll have hole 1 through 4.
That's an interesting story.
I don't know why this person who did this, and I know the
Pennsylvania
name of
County.
everything. Something in his mind told him, he said, we're liable to have a battle around here, and I don't want these county records
That's a
destroyed.
good idea.
So they buried them. And then after the war was over, they went back and dug them back up. And you know, they put things around them to keep them from getting destroyed, I assume, and stuff like that. But that's what they did, and they got their records all the way back to when the county was formed, which is in 17-something, I can't tell you. But the oldest county in West Virginia is what?
Shepherdstown.
Shepherdstown in that area, that's the oldest.
Berkeley or?
Yeah, that's the oldest county in West Virginia. And it's fascinating to go to these courthouses and different things to see. I tell you what struck me, and I wouldn't have put this stuff out had I been me. I went to Albemarle County, Virginia, in the courthouse there to look for some stuff. And they got original documents signed by Patrick Henry, Thomas Jefferson, all that kind of stuff. And I just said to myself, you people must be nuts. Because anybody killed, what, for a paper with a signature of Thomas Jefferson on it? Can you think of how much money that would be worth? You know? And I couldn't believe it when I went in there. And this is Thomas Jefferson's original signature.
They should photocopy and put
yeah,
that
put that
somewhere in
back
an
on.
archive
Oh,
somewhere.
yeah.
Yeah.
They were surveys, that's what they were. Because, you know, Jefferson and Washington, all these people were surveyors. And there's surveyors of land, and they were signed by Patrick Henry and Thomas Jefferson. And I couldn't believe what I was looking at. And, you know, being the history buff that I am, I was going, I was drooling. I was drooling.
Surprised somebody didn't cut the corner off of it.
Other places to check, if you're checking for, Michelle just mentioned the Library of Virginia in Richmond. That's a good place, because they've got a lot of materials down there that kind of